Okay, weekly review. Let's get into it. Let's start with the Bitcoin dominance because I think that is important. The two dominances are the ones we are tracking. So, Bitcoin dominance, we drew this box last week, and it's exactly the box that it's come back into. Um, this wick here has now been the wick on this candle is now being fully tested. We have like a double top on it. So here, 59.89, 59.92 is almost like a double top. Um, and we've then come back to the scene of, we are kind of close to the scene of the crime on this one. So I think for me, we need to see a breakdown of this. And, if I take it to the weekly chart is still looking very bullish, so it may well be that it goes up to do a double top here because, some part of this week is not been tested. So, it's possible that Bitcoin dominance unfortunately increases. Oh, hold on. Let me just get this to be bigger. And let's move this up to the top there because I think Bitcoin dominance probably will increase because um, of the fear in the market. I think so. It's more likely we're going to do like a double top first, which means there'll be a little bit more pain um, on the altcoins, unfortunately, before. So if I go and look at my 4 hour setup and see what that looks like. Uh, so 4 hours, we've kind of done our kind of first drop down there. And this whole move here, if you say this is one, this is two, this is three, and we're coming back to the scene of the crime. So, uh, yeah, I mean, it looks like on 4 hours, it's done what it's supposed to do. This is level one, level two, and we're going, but level three needs to be higher than two. Unless, of course, oh, hold on, there's a level one here. I didn't count one here. So that's a level one drop, level one there, level two here. And we got a level three, right? So all this here is just a retrace back to level three. So you know, it's possible we do a double top here, um, but I think we're more likely to go up a bit more on Bitcoin dominance, I think. So that's what on the Bitcoin dominance. Let's look at the others dominance because they are kind of in sync with each other. So, oh, hold on. On the others dominance, we've done our first kind of level one drop there and a level two drop here. So, and this is kind of our level three, but level three will go lower than that. So, we'll probably end up with, if you're doing the one, two, three, four, five, then, oh, let's just make it smaller. If we're doing one, two, three, four, five, then we say this is zero, one, two, three, four, and five, right? So, but this will go, it's not going lower enough. Like if we look at, for example, let's make this bigger. If we look at a drop from here to there, that was about 8%. So if we tag another 8% on top of it, and then you're looking at 8%, that brings us into our box, and we haven't touched our box yet. So I think there's more downside. We might get some small bounces here and there, but I think there's still some more bounce, which will get us back into their box. And also it kind of ties in with the trend line. So we have a trend line. If I go into the weekly chart, we have a trend line which is cutting from the base all the way through here. So we haven't even hit the trend line yet. So I think there is some more. Unfortunately, there's a little bit more that needs to happen. Um, a little bit more that needs to happen before we go up. I mean, if you look at it on the weekly scale, then it's giving me a bit of a conundrum because if all of this here is one drop and you got two here, and you got three, and you've gone and done that, then okay, then you're looking at four and five. So, which means level four drop, level five drop is probably going to happen based on the setup that we see in here. Because on the weekly chart, we're going to close red, red, red candle, red volume bar, red. So the best case scenario, I said, like I said in the morning, would be okay, we close this week and we come back slightly, maybe do a double bottom here or slightly into this wick here, there, and then we start going up. That would be the best case scenario. So that's what I'm hoping for is that, we actually maybe exceed this candle a little bit or do a double bottom here, or we come into the wick somewhere here, or we exceed it slightly, and then off we go. So we do have a bit more downside on the others' dominance. So, that means the altcoins, unfortunately, will go down some more. Let's look at Bitcoin itself. So if we look at Bitcoin on the weekly chart, what you can see is we are forming a kind of a rejection candle, which is not really great, which means, there's more downside. So, if we close like this at midnight, which probably is more likely that we're going to close like this, then there will be some more energy flow to the downside. Um, this monthly chart was quite bullish for me. I looked at it and I was like, okay, it's really, really bullish because we've closed the whole month green, green, green in January. So there's more upside, right? But before that upside can happen, sometimes you can either come here, which would be around the 96K mark, retest that, or we could come all the way down to this point here, 85K, before we start going up again. So if you compare this to what happened before we had the step up, right? So if you can see, when we go here, we had our red candle, then we had a green candle, similar to what we've had here, right? And then we had a green candle. So, like this is one green candle, red, green, and red. And guess what? After that, you had a big zip to the downside here. Two zip, 2 months, zip to the downside, and then we started going up. So that could play out, right? Because then you get your five drops. After the next leg up, you get your five drops, then you go up again. So it could well be that we this is one, this is two, this is three, and this is four. So we are kind of one, two, three, and this is our fourth candle. So which would be like this one here, right? So you know, we may end up, stalling a bit, going sideways, a bit sideways. This is all sideways action before zip comes down. So, I think, we'll close this week somewhere around 96K. And at that point, I think we will get a bit of relief on the altcoins. The altcoins may bounce up a bit, but this definitely looks more like it's coming down first before we go up. If we bring it to the weekly chart, like I was saying, we're going to probably close triple red, which means there's more downside. And, if you look at it from a drop perspective on the weekly chart, this is just one drop. This probably becomes like two, and you go your three. So, if that's the case, the best case scenario is you come all the way down to here, 91,000, but, it could have a big wick that wicks all the way down to here, to the tops here, which would be like 82K, something like that. And then you can start going back up again. So I think there's more downside on the weekly chart. On the daily chart, it's on a support zone on the daily chart. So we are sitting on the 50 EMA at the moment, which is a support zone. Now, whether this support is going to hold, I don't think so. I don't think this support will hold. We may bounce back a little bit, back to about 100K or maybe probably to about, I would say, 101K. But I think there's more downside on it because we don't have enough of the levels currently on this weekly chart. There's not enough levels. Uh, yeah, there's not enough levels at the moment. So I think there's more downside. Um, there is definitely more downside first before we start going up. This whole week here, this week here, this long week from here to here, it has to be tested at the very least, something like here, 90,000, something there, like there. It has to be tested because we haven't tested any part of it at all. And we are below zero as well. So it's all pointing towards more downside. If you go on the 4 hour chart, and I think that 4 hour chart gives me my reasons why I think we'll go down some more. Although we have a divergence on the 4 hour chart, this is a divergence. Um, we have a divergence here between here and there. So there's a divergence between there, here, and here, right? So we could come up a little bit. We could have a bit of a bounce up to come and retest this 200 EMA, which is sitting around 100K, come back and retest it. And I think that's going to be key for me is when we come back up, are we able to break it or not? That's going to be key. I, I mean, if I'm erring on the side of caution, I will probably say it breaks down. I'll say this breaks down rather than continue to go up. Um, but I could be wrong, but I think based on the weekly setup, I think there's going to be more downside first. More downside first. We may bounce back up a little bit, but there's more downside first for me, to the 96K zone before we start going anywhere else. So that's what I'm seeing on Bitcoin. Um, so I think the fact that BTC dominance is more likely to get stronger, other dominance has got more falling on it. Bitcoin potentially is going to be more falling on it. That means the altcoins, unfortunately, will fall a bit more. So, we can look at UMA BTC, for example, on the weekly chart, and we can see that there's no change. The weekly chart is still red. So we'll close red, red, red. Um, the divergences are still on there. So we do still have divergence. Actually, we don't have a divergence anymore because we've gone below the pivot, which is here. But if I look at it from the perspective of from here, this bottom base here, and say price has gone lower than here, then we still have a divergence. So from here, we've been having our divergences. That's a divergence. That's another divergence. That's another divergence. So we seem to be going down and down. But the good news is this is still the line is still sitting on the support trend line. So when you draw a trend line across it, it's still sitting on that trend line from here to there. So, but I think there's one more leg down. There's still this thing will go down one more first, like something like this one here, right? So we close this week like this, and then we go down a bit like this, and then we can start going up. That's what I'm looking for on this UMA BTC chart, which means UMA itself on the USD chart is going to go down some more. Um, I've drawn this box here. At the very least, I expect it to hit, because if we close this week, even say we close at a low of 199, we will likely zip down into somewhere here, which will take us into the 170s. 170s, 165 zone, somewhere there. It's possible because this week hasn't been tested. So this whole week here hasn't been tested. So it's 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 a it's an area of interest for me in terms of price action. So, that's my area of interest, which I'll be monitoring. Um, so there's more downside on UMA. Let's move on to TIBTC. TIBTC as well. We are going to close the week also red, and MACD is also coming down towards zero. So, I would expect one more zip to the downside, which means there's more downside again on the actual tier BTC chart, also the tier USD chart. So if we look at it here, we can see on the weekly chart again. The good news is that you can see volume is reducing, which is good. So, although we're going down, volume is declining, which is good. That's what you want to see. But I think this week again, this is another one that we will close this week red, and then we go down slightly, maybe to 350, 350, 340. Worst case scenario, get to 330, I think. And then we can start going back up again. So more downside also on tier. If we're going to look at the 4 hours, um, we're just breaking this pivot at the moment. So I think, even if we get a bounce, we may bounce back up to about what, 418, 418, maybe 445, something like that. And then we continue going down. There'll be more downside. Um, so we got a bit more pain on that chart, on this chart, and especially with this candle here sitting here, that candle is always exceeded. Normally, when you see it, you go below it. You can go up first, but you come down below it. So I know this is going to be exceeded. This 375 is going to be exceeded for sure. So there's a bit more downside. I think, back into this zone here, between here and here is where I expect us to be. Um, so more pain, unfortunately, on tier. Let's move on to mooding. Okay, so mooding on the weekly chart. Let's start from the weekly chart. This is the box we drew last week. It's been exceeded. Uh, so I'm gonna move this box because it's no longer there. I think I'll put it here because again we're gonna close red, red, red. So we'll go down one more time. And I think, the 0.07 zone is probably going to be hit before we start going back up. So if you bring it onto the 4 hour chart, the good news is we've got divergences all over. Like this is all divergences, which is beautiful to see. So since here, since this point here, RSI has been going up and up and up and up and up. MACD is trending up and up and up. Price going down, down. So that's a positive sign. It's really positive that, we could get an explosive move. So I'm just drinking some water. Yeah, we could get an explosive move on Moondic because I look at the liquidation heat map and I can't seem to get it to work here because of my password. I don't remember my password anyway, but the liquidation heat map is it's such that like literally there's nothing left below this point. There's nothing left. So there's no incentive for the market maker at the moment to keep pushing the price down or there's no incentive for the market maker. So I think they probably would do something like this, something like this. They will do it. They will push it very quickly, fast, maybe push it all the way back up here to about 17 and, liquidate all the shorts because people are shorting, right? There's so many people are shorting at the moment. So they'll just move it very quickly to the upside and liquidate a lot of the shorts. Um, if we go, this is 4 hours. If you look at 12 hours, for example, again, there's divergences from this point. You can see here to there, to there, to there. It's all divergences throughout. Your MACD is also getting smaller, 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 smaller. So it's only a matter of time before this explodes, before we get an explosion like that above this point. So although we could have a bit of a downturn, I am optimistic of a pump like we have here. That we're gonna get a pump because there's no incentive to push it down. There's no liquidity at the bottom for them to take. So they would rather push it up and take the liquidity at the top. Not push it maybe too far, but at least at the very least to about 15, you know, to kind of give a bit of room for maneuver, get more people to short more, I guess, and then they can move it back down. So Moondic definitely I will expect a pump, a liquidation pump. But that box, that box is an area of interest, this box here for me. Let's look at goat as well. So goat is gone below our area of interest. And again, if I go bring it back on the weekly chart, yeah, so it's also going to go down one more. It's going to go down a little bit, one more after midnight. It will go down a little bit more first, and then you're going to get a pump. I think you're going to get a pump after that. You're going to get a pump because it's gone down 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row. So it's due a pump. It may not be the correction or whatever, but we definitely due a pump on this weekly chart. So, and there is not much liquidity. I mean, I'm checking it on my other screen. I've got two screens, which I can't share the other one. But when I look at the liquidation heat map for gold, yeah, there's nothing left. There's big liquidity sitting at £1, £1. So $1, sorry. And the immediate liquidity sits at 0.03, 0.03, 0.26 to 0.03. So they will do a very fast one and liquidate a few people, even if they have to move it back down again. But so I think there is, yeah, potentially one more down, potentially one more down. And I think even the 4 hour chart is giving me an indication that they are already trying to start because what they've done is we got divergence here, right? This is a divergence here, and it's possible they are preparing themselves, right? And we've come back into the wick here, so that pump is probably on its way coming. So yeah, definitely good. You're going to get a pump on it. So and then we've got, I think, let's look at dot because I know you got dot as well, Marshall. So dot on the weekly chart. Um, yeah, I think last week when we spoke, we did say it was going to come back down into the box. It's not come yet into the area of interest, but we are closing red, which means we will go down some more. And I think it will come back into the box. It will definitely come into the box before we go anywhere. So that stays the same for me. That is not changing. Let's look at render briefly. PEPE, actually, PEPE. Let me look at PEPE as well. PEPE is another one on the weekly chart. We're probably going to close red, which means we might have a bit of a bounce up. So like, like here, when you close red, you bounce up first. So we could bounce to about 13.8. So let me just move this here. We could bounce to about, let me just be safe, 13.5, somewhere there. But I do expect some more downside after that. After that, I think it will probably come back down again before we go up. If we go and look on a 4 hour setup, the 4 hour setup, we will, it's already starting to try to go up. I can see that it's trying its best to do their pump, that kind of back to the 50 EMA. So but that will be just a minor pump, and then you've got to have to go down again. So I think if I go back to the weekly or the daily chart here, the area of interest probably for this fall, we're probably looking at this candle here. So there, but we've already come there, so we need to find a new one. We need to find a different area of interest. Oh, this one's here, that one there. So yeah, that brings us to about 0.98. Yeah. So we probably hit 0.98 on PEPE before we start actually going up. So that's PEPE because already we've come back to the 200, been rejected. So it's just go down some more. So that's PEPE for you. Let's look at render. So render as well. So our area of interest already been hit. I go on the weekly chart. I think I look at render, and yeah, it's come onto the support line. So it's sitting on the support line, exactly on the support line. I think there's still one more zip to the downside on render. I think we will get one more zip to the downside. We will get one more zip to the downside. And I will probably say to somewhere around here, which would be 450. Yeah, 450-ish. So move this to the 450 zone. Yeah. And then after that, we can start going back up. So, that's what I'll be expecting on render. And until render breaks this line, then it's gonna be going down. So that's render there. If I bring it here as well, yeah, it needs to hit the line. So yeah, 350, I mean, even 330 is on the cards. But this wick here, which was never tested, trading, if you're if you're patient, you get, you're patient, honestly. The one who said this has to be tested at some point properly and decided I'm going to leave some orders here is going to be rewarded because we will test a proportion of this. So 350 certainly on the cards. 350 is on the card. So I do expect that to be hit. 350. If I bring this down here, somewhere there, it will be hit. So more downside as well on that one. Ethereum. Let's look at Ethereum because Ethereum will help us in terms of altcoins market direction. Ethereum is also going to be a triple red, so which means into next week, our best case scenario is it bounces up to here. Ethereum bounces to about 3,108, somewhere there, and then it continues to go down. Ethereum will come all the way back down to this point here, 2.5. 2.5 Ethereum is on the cards. Um, that's where I'll put my full target. The Ethereum will fall to that zone before we go up. Let's look at which other coins. I think those are our coins anyway. Those are our coins. And let's also look at the dollar because yeah, the dollar is interesting. Um, so on the weekly chart, the dollar, we've got this kind of a push back up to the scene of the crime. I mean, this is a stopping candle. MACD is coming down, and we've had this. So, you know, I I would say next week we'll go up some more. We'll go up a little bit more first. But I think ultimately the dollar comes down. I think it comes down because if I go and look at my 4 hour setup, if I look at my 4 hour setup, then let's see and look at where we are. Okay, so we are above the 50 and the 200. So we could go up a bit more. Yeah, we could go up a bit more. So we could go up and maybe come back to somewhere here, you know, somewhere there. I wouldn't expect this to go all the way back up to the top here. I wouldn't expect that um, because we've only just done a one correction, two correction, three. Okay, we've done three corrections plus a lower high on 4 hours. So we're going to do three levels to the upside. So yeah, so one, yeah, there's more upside then. Yeah, there's more upside. So, and I think it probably ties in with all the fears around tariffs because people will now move into dollars, right? Because they don't want they don't want to be in risk assets, I think. So the dollar will go up, I think. Yeah, I think it will go up a bit more. Um, Let me look at the US Treasury yields because that also is a factor for the dollar as well. And on the 4 hours, what have we got here? So we've got one step, two step, three step, then we've gone up four and five. Okay, I think this also goes up. So this goes up, which means, it will put pressure on all the risk assets. So there you have it. So that's, I think, a wrap up in terms of our coins. I think in summary, more downside into Monday. I think into Monday, Tuesday, we might get a bit of a bounce, but I don't think that is going to be sustained. I think until Bitcoin hits somewhere around the 96, between 91 and 96K, when it gets 96, we'll get a bounce, which means, you know, altcoins can run a bit, bounce back a bit, to kind of give them a bit of space. Um, and then, you know, with the dollar rising and everything else, I think that means we have more downside on Bitcoin, which means Bitcoin goes a little bit down, towards that zone that we marked, towards this box here, which means there's more downside, unfortunately. So just make sure your liquidation levels are, in good place. It won't last forever. I think once we get into this zone, we'll get some really strong reaction um, in terms of a proper bounce, and that will help the altcoins all to bounce properly. And then also maybe Bitcoin dominance then tops out at around back up the figures that we expect it to. It tops out, and then the total others dominance can then really start moving up. So a bit of a, you know, probably a challenging, I guess, week coming ahead for the coins. Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna stop recording.